you guys out there, and guys and gals on YouTube land. It is us, fat and angry. He's fat and I'm angry. And it is currently the 11th of October 2018, and today we're going to talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because you must always remember the Saws family.
I suppose.
Well, then what is it then? Don't say just like random logging equipment.
I'll take all the fun out of my life. Alright, well, Texas Chainsaw, there's at least 8 movies that I know of. And they are not in any sort of chronological order of their release. There's several of them that don't acknowledge each other.
That is true.
So it makes it really difficult to organize it on your shelf if you're trying to put them in chronological order.
You just got to put them in order when they're released, if for nothing else.
Well, you can do that, but I like putting my movies in chronological.
So what does that mean? Like when you do the Hellraiser movies, you go with like Hellraiser Bloodlines first because it talks about how they put together the box?
In that case, because it's an anthology and has 3 different stories, I just go ahead and put it in the 4th section since it's the 4th movie. Since I can't break the disc into 3 pieces and still watch it.
If only. We're still working on that technology. Have you broken your CD? No problem. Now you've just made 2. But anyway, back to the subject at hand. One of the reasons that we're talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre right now is because I wanted to do something a little bit special. I've been posting for a couple of months on YouTube right now on our YouTube channel, Fat and Angry, which obviously you know because you wouldn't be hearing these if you aren't on that part of YouTube. Because so far that's the only place I've been posting them. And this one I'm going to record today, or tonight, which is Thursday night, and hopefully I will get this slapped together and posted by tomorrow. So hopefully this will be up Friday, and then I'll still keep posting the ones from the other ones, or from our main list. That one will go up Saturday as well. I just wanted to do something for the month. I wanted to do something current. Because all the other ones, I just finished the last one. The last one that we posted was online gaming, and that one was the last one we recorded in January. That was 10 fucking months ago. So needless to say, nothing that we have posted thus far has been anything remotely up to date. So this will be the first one that is as such. Anyway, now on to the subject, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I guess we should start with the first one, yes?
Well, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it is loosely inspired by the crimes of real-life killer Ed Gein.
It was inspiration for a lot of films.
Yeah, Psycho was another one.
Definitely.
There was also a movie called 3 on a Meat Hook, which I've been told was partially inspirational for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, I haven't seen 3 on a Meat Hook. It's one I want to get for my collection, but it's kind of hard to find right now.
Well, it's not one I'm familiar with. I've heard you mention it once or twice, but other than that, I haven't heard anyone ever talk about it.
Yeah.
Why hasn't James Rolfe gotten to that yet? He talks about everything else come Halloween.
Well, get him on your Facebook and ask.
I don't have a Facebook. I don't do Facebook.
Well, maybe you should start.
No.
Yes.
You have the Facebook. You do it.
I ain't gonna try to make friends with James Rolfe. Get through that waiting list.
You think I'd have any better? How brave of you to assume. Anyways, when was the first time you saw the first movie?
I would want to say probably when I was 18.
18?
Yeah, that's when I really started collecting horror movies, and I went to a video store, asked if I can order a copy of Texas Chainsaw, and they got it for me.
And what you heard about it up to that point, like up to the legend, or up to the reality?
Well, I thought it was pretty good. I wasn't really sure what to expect because nobody had really told me in detail what it was about. All I knew was there was a transvestite cannibal with a chainsaw killing people, and that happened. So
I actually had never seen it until probably either my high school or my college days altogether, but I'd seen bits and pieces of it when I was a kid because, well, you know, USA Up All Night, Joe Bob Briggs, Monster Vision, HBO, Showtime, like, you know, being a kid and having access to cable television, you tend to see like a lot of bits and pieces of things, but very seldom do you get to catch it like all at once.
yeah.
So I'd seen bits of it, mostly the very end. I remember as a kid, I don't even remember how young I was. I must have been 6 or so. I remember flicking the channel, and like it got to the scene where Leatherface falls down and the chainsaw hits him on the thigh. You just see it pull up chunks of meat. And that was fucking jarring for 6-year-old me. But then again, that's what it was like living in the 80s.
Yeah. My favorite scene is where they're trying to get Grandpa to kill the girl, and you know the father's assuring the girl, you know, don't worry, it'll be over quick. Grandpa's the best. And Grandpa just like keeps barely dropping the hammer on her head.
Because he's like 1,000 years old. It's like he personally met and shook hands with Jesus Christ himself. He's been around. Like he can't even lift the hammer. They're having to like put it in the hammer. It's like trying to pick up something with a prize grabbing claw. And then they're having to like lift up his arm for him. And essentially he's not hitting her so much as the hammer's just coming down due to gravity. Which I don't know if it was causing her injury or if it was just annoying the piss out of her.
Well, there was some blood, but then head wounds tend to bleed pretty easily, especially with blunt force trauma.
But man, like that's probably one of the more jarring parts of the whole damn movie. But let's rewind back a little bit. So the movie starts off like saying that this is like, doesn't it start with like that like freaking homeboy from Unsolved Mystery? So almost it sounds like that guy talking about like, you know, this is like the story of like these people who wandered lost in Texas and were found brutally murdered.
Yeah.
Like this is their story. And then you get like the opening, the very like legendary opening of like the corpses being posed and like, you know, taken pictures of, and you get that horribly warped sound of like an old flashbulb camera going off. Yeah, that kind of like, it's like they took that sound and they warped it, either that or they added something like someone pulling their fingernails across a violin cord or something like that to get that very distinctive yet sickening sound. It's a really interesting way to open up the movie, and it really sets you up for just, you're in for a fucking nightmare.
Yeah. No, I haven't watched the movie in like about a month, so...
A month. I haven't seen it in several years, but something like that sticks with you pretty well.
As I recall, the whole reason that the kids are traveling up there is basically they wanted to make sure that their family grave wasn't disturbed.
Yeah, because like the news was saying, like, you know, there was a grave robber going around digging up corpses and like posing them in like, you know, suggestive and awkward situations. You find out later in the movie that that's done by Leatherface's brother, I believe.
Head cheese, yeah. I believe that's who was doing it.
Was that him, or was it like a different character in the second movie?
It's a different character in the second one. The second one is chopped up.
All right. Oh no, he does. Yeah, he does get. Does he get chopped up, or does he get run over by?
He gets run over by a semi, like, yeah. And he goes like right under the wheels.
Yeah, he is like, he just gets fucking destroyed. So like, yeah, you get this group of kids, including like this. I don't know if he was crippled or like special needs, but this guy in a wheelchair.
Franklin.
Yeah, Franklin. Wow, you remember the name. Like I said, it's been a long time. I don't remember any of the names, which is why I don't even know if they refer to Leatherface as Leatherface in the movie. Doesn't his Paul call him like Junior or something like that?
Yeah, also Head Cheese does call him Leather at one point. Not Leatherface, just Leather.
But yeah, so like they're looking to check up on the graves. They come across a farm. They wander in, and that's where you get like once they find the farm, which kind of that reminded me a bit of like the Bates mansion behind the motel.
Yeah.
But they go in there and you see like all this furniture, like made out of like animal parts and like what you might assume might also be people parts.
Yeah.
Which is where I think a lot of the inspiration from Ed Gein came along, because Ed Gein, I think he only killed 2 actual people, but mostly he just like dug up corpses and like made knickknacks and furniture and shit out of the bones and body parts.
Yeah, it's not confirmed, but it's believed he cannibalized like the people that he dug up.
I'd be lucky he didn't die from that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, he got convicted of killing 2 women.
yeah, so homeboy's like wandering around this big old Texas house. He goes down like a hallway that's a dead end, and just as he's turning, the fucking door just pulls quickly. You just see Leatherface for the first time in the whole movie. He's got like a big hammer, and he just whacks this guy right in his fucking forehead.
Yeah, he just starts flopping like a trout.
Dude, yeah, it's like the guy starts having a grand mal seizure from the impact, and it's sick. It is just like the rapid shaking and thumping that he does. Like it really, like you feel that ugly feeling in the pit of your stomach, because it's way too fucking real.
Yeah, that's one thing that a lot of people might forget about the original Texas Chainsaw is it wasn't that bloody. It really wasn't. But
the horror wasn't in the gore. The horror was in like what you were witnessing.
Yeah, and like honestly, I think like the scenes that do have violence are actually a lot more visceral for not going over the top of blood. When that one guy gets clobbered with the hammer, nowadays, they'd make like a huge blood splatter. And
yeah, you're right about that. They'd make like a big production, like they would do a close in, where you'd probably see CG. His eyes would bug out. It'd be like this giant anime spray of blood, and like as he'd be flopping, you'd probably be seeing like visceral spray going all over the place.
Yeah.
But no, it's just like it's a crunch. The guy goes down. He starts having a really ugly looking seizure. And then you just see Leatherface bend down and off camera just hit him a couple more times to like, finish him off. Like with those just wet, ugly crunches. And he drags him through the doorway and then just slams that doorway shut again.
Yeah.
And like it's a very quick scene, but like man, it's like I know a lot of people that they don't remember shit about that movie, but they will never forget that scene.
Well, it happens so quick that it's like, and it's unexpected, and the shock value is great on it.
Because, like I said, it seems way too real. It's like you got to wonder. It's like they just like get an actor and say, "Just stand here." It's like, what am I supposed to do? Oh, you'll know when it happens. And then like they just straight up murdered a dude for a movie and filmed it on set. It's like there's a reason why the actor who plays Leatherface is never without a mask throughout the whole movie, because they didn't want him to get identified later on.
Well, there was mafia ties to the movie budget, so maybe they need to get rid of somebody owed them money.
Loose lip Louis, he really should have kept his lips shut tighter. Now he's hamburger.
Hey, we gotta wait for you to make your money back. We got you a movie role.
There you go.
Just stand right here. All right, Leather, you whack him good.
Who was the actor who played Leatherface, the original actor?
Gunnar Hansen.
Gunnar Hansen. And he's passed away now since, yes?
Yes.
That's a shame, but that's how he ended up on Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I've been told that he was actually a friend with Ed Boon, and so Ed Boon added him to the Mortal Kombat roster as like a tribute to his friend.
Well, like the fact that they already had Freddy Krueger from the previous one, and that one already had Jason Voorhees and the Xenomorph. It just seems like,
Well, they're actually talking about making a horror movie-based fighting game. They wanted to get at least 25 licenses for it.
Like, you mean like one other than that one guy did that was like...
Terror Drum?
Yeah.
Well, that was a fan project. This would be like an official video game release.
Well, that would be nice, but man, I know a lot of film companies, like, they get really bitchy about their licenses. It's like, why can't we just do a Monster Mash like the good old days? It's like, because we want money, and we don't want to share, so fuck off.
Like the Halloween box that I have, I'm actually surprised I was able to get it, because like at the time, Who Owned What was a fucking mess.
And then there was also like the Chucky box set that finally came out
Yeah.
with like all 7 movies, and you told me that was probably never going to happen because like the first one wasn't owned by the same people that did the second and the rest of them.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Leatherface or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that's the initial kill. Who's the next one to go?
I think it's the girl gets stuck on the meat hook.
Eventually, like the guy in the wheelchair gets it, and he gets it pretty bad too.
He's the one who gets the chainsaw.
Yeah, he's like, isn't he like the only one you actually see
Get killed by a chainsaw.
Yeah, he's just like this poor bastard, and like they do this effect that's actually pretty interesting for the low budget that they had and like the gritty, ugly style of the film, where you see him like he's facing away from the camera, and Leatherface just straight up stabs him with the chainsaw, and he's flailing around. Like once again, you don't see a lot of blood or anything, but you hear that chainsaw going. You hear him screaming and flailing and shaking, and then you see like I think they did that effect where you see like the wheelchair like billow out in the back from where like the chainsaw is like pushing up against the back part of the wheelchair, or is that just my imagination? Because like I said, it's been a while.
I'd have to double check it. But one thing I do know about that scene is when you're seeing Leatherface head on, what they did was they had the actors stand behind the camera while Leatherface was in position. They were spitting ketchup at him to get the blood effects.
So yeah, the wheelchair kid who is going to get fucking ended, he gets fucking ended. Because like if you're in a wheelchair in a horror movie, you're fucked.
Well, Child's Play 6, she makes it out, so...
Maybe they wanted to go against like the trope. Because every so often you'll see that. Because you remember, like back in the day, there used to be the thing about horror movies, like the black guy always like ended up getting killed. If he wasn't the first one to go, he wasn't going to make it through the movie.
Yeah.
And like I've seen some, like even fucking Monster Squad, which is a horror movie for kids, kind of. Like you couldn't show that to kids nowadays.
Well, sure you could.
But like the guy who was like the partner of the main cop, like he's in the car, like when the stick of dynamite gets thrown under it and he gets killed, which sucked because he was actually a really cool character. I liked him. Like he was very boisterous and very vocal, but like not in an annoying, obnoxious way. At least not from what I remember. And like, he got killed, and I'm like, damn, black guy can't even survive in a fucking kids horror movie. That's bullshit, man. But then then it became like the trope where like the black guy never dies in the horror movie, which is like how freaking Homeboy and what was it, Deep Blue, like gets chewed on by the shark for like 10 minutes and then spat out.
Yeah, at one point they introduced the line, and I think it was in Scream, where the black person would say, black people do not survive well in these situations. And the moment the black guy says that, he's going to make it to the end. I can think of at least 3 or 4 movies where that line comes out and the black guy survives.
I want to see someone make a movie where they don't write who's going to get killed initially. I want to see a movie where they put like all the faces on a dartboard, and they have X amount of darts, and they say only one gets out, and they just like throw it like with a shotgun effect, and whichever dart doesn't have a face in it, that's the one that survives. So it's all just left up to random chance, and then you write the movie around that. I think that'd be an interesting concept. I'd like to see that. So. God, I'm trying. Like you've seen the movie more recently than me. How do they eventually like? They all just get picked up one after another, right? Like all the kids.
On Leatherface? Oh, I mean, Texas Chainsaw?
Yeah.
Well, I know the girl gets stuck on a meat hook. She's like eventually found in the freezer, and she just kind of like flails and falls over dead. Franklin gets cut down the center by Leatherface. The girl who survives, she ends up getting captured after Franklin gets killed, and that's when they have the crazy ass dinner scene.
Yeah, like to me is like not. Well, besides maybe the initial killing where like Homeboy like says hello to the hammer. He gets very intimate with the hammer, gets to know it really well. Besides that scene, the scene that's probably the most jarring and just horrifying is the dinner scene. Because like this woman screaming, she realizes that they're all eating like people meat, and they're like laughing and jeering at her. It's like a fucking madhouse.
Yeah.
It's like when you realize that you are shackled to a table surrounded by
Lunatic cannibals.
like that doesn't even properly like describe. It's like you're surrounded by people that not even a fucking madhouse is equipped to deal with. Like you put them in an insane asylum and you just see the rest of the inmates just fucking try to break out because they don't want to be within like 100 yards of these fuckers.
Yeah.
Just like criminally insane doesn't even cover it. Just deeply, deeply fucking incorrect people mentally.
Eventually, at some point where they're trying to get Grandpa to introduce her to the hammer, she manages to slip free and jump out a window.
Which is also another horrible scene because, like, you know, you got like 5 or 6 people all talking at the same time, and that's what really makes it so dirty and effective of a scene for me. Because, like, you get that gritty camera, like, you know, it's like it was filmed in low definition.
Yeah.
Like even movie film of the time could do much better, but they got like this ugly. It's like, you know,
It's almost got like a yellow tint to it, like it's been aged.
Like, you know, like was like before we start filming, we're gonna take this camera and we're gonna hang it over the exhaust vent at a McDonald's, and then it just soak up the grease for like a week.
Yep.
And like filmed in like greasy vision.
Yeah, it's got like a whole lot of static to it, and like film artifacts, and
It's like it really helps with the grittiness. You feel like you need to take a shower after you watch it.
like you get tetanus shot.
Yeah, really. And like it's just like all the people talking over each other. It gives it a lot more prominence. It makes it feels like you're not watching a movie. You're watching fucking like security camera footage from the inside of this fucking crazy family's home.
Yeah.
It seems too real, and that's what gets under a lot of people's skin. That's what really like put this movie over the top back in the day, from what I understand. That people saw this and like it didn't just terrify them; it disgusted them on a level that a lot of people hadn't ever experienced before in a movie theater. This was like Grindhouse without like the gore.
I've heard the quote that Texas Chainsaw did for meat eating what Jaws did for swimming.
Like yeah, so the main chick, she eventually gets out and she flags down a trucker.
Yeah, and the trucker, he throws a wrench at Leatherface, which knocks him over.
And you get that scene, probably like the goriest scene in the whole movie. Like he falls down and like the chainsaw hits him in the thigh. And I don't know how they did that. Like they just put like a bit of steak like under his jeans or something, or under his pants, and you just see like meat just getting pulled up by the teeth of the whirling chainsaw. And like that like I said, I saw that when I was really little, and that like fucked with my head for a while. I had that image in my head for like a very long time, and then they parodied it again. Like was it like that one movie like Red Hot Summer or Summer School? I think it was Summer School. It was like one of those '80s movies and shit. There was like this guy who wanted to be like a horror makeup artist. And so like at one point during summer school, they're like watching the original Leatherface and they show that scene. And then later on in the film, they fuck with like someone by the guy like does up all the students so they look like they just got like fucking murdered out of something from Nightmare on Elm Street. Like one person looks like they had like those big fucking blackboard erasers like shoved into their throat.
Oh yeah, I remember that scene now. Yeah, there's like one kid who's got a saw blade sticking out of his head, and then like the one has like one of those hands that has like a little air thing to make it crawl. He uses it to pull out his tongue. Yeah, I remember that. That was fucking awesome.
That was like a very brutal scene for what was not a horror movie.
Yeah.
But like once again, like it was the 80s, it was a different time.
That scene had more gore than Texas Chainsaw.
It had a fucking lot more gore than Texas Chainsaw did. So like the trucker fucking wrenches like Leatherface. Leatherface falls down and fucks up his leg. And then like what you said, like head cheese tries to run and stop. and he just gets run the fuck over.
Yeah, and then like a pickup truck goes by while this is going on, and she gets in the back of the pickup truck, and that's when Leatherface starts doing the famous chainsaw dance.
And like, and the movie ends on that. Like, it leaves a lot of questions. Like, she's in the back of the pickup, like freaking out.
She's just like laughing maniacally. Cause,
yeah, because like she is well fucking gone.
if it was a Call of Cthulhu game, she's very low on her sanity score at this point.
What sanity score? In the negative numbers now. And in that house, yeah, that's exactly what you'd fucking expect. And like, yeah, of course, like Leatherface is going to go chasing her down in like a pickup with his bum leg now, and he just starts swinging because like he's angry that she got away and angry that I'm guessing his brother, cousin, or whatever the fuck he's supposed to be, got run the fuck over. So he's just like swinging the chainsaw around in like a fury, and it almost looks like a ballerina dance, like in an odd way, and then it just cuts out. Very jarring movie, very dirty. In terms of horror movies, it's one of like the classics. It's one of the greatest. If you haven't seen it, then you can't say you're a true horror movie aficionado. But anyway, on to the next one.
Alright, so there's actually two different sequels to the first one. There's the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 with Dennis Hopper, and then the new one, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. And story-wise, I think 3D is a much better sequel, and it really rounds out the story in what I think is a good way. I highly recommend it. But we're going to go ahead and talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 first, because that's the first one that happened.
And also, that one I've actually seen. I don't think I've seen 3D. I don't think I've seen 3D. Was 3D the one that had Arlie Ermey in it? Because I think he was in two of the newer ones.
No, that was two other ones. But
he was in the remake, and then he was in, I think, the sequel to the remake.
Well, actually, it's a prequel to the remake.
Yeah, because he gets killed in the remake, and then he shows up in the next one, and is like, okay, explain this.
But
and it might explain what happened to Head Cheese. It's like with Head Cheese with a giant metal plate. Is that supposed to be like saying that he survived getting run over, but now he's got a giant plate keeping his head together?
No, Chop Top is actually like a twin.
Ah. Oh, so Head Cheese is in the first one, and Chop Top was the guy in the second movie.
Right.
All right, well, that makes a bit more sense. Yeah, he's just... I think they went a little bit too over the top with him. I didn't really like him as a character.
I didn't care for much either. Part 2 in general was just fucking batshit insane.
Yeah, it's like... it seems like they took the original movie, which is like a masterpiece in dirty, ugly horror. Like, when it is like, you want to do a horror in like a dirty, gritty way. That's how you fucking do it. I can't think of a better example, can you?
Give me time, I probably could.
At least, like, not one that was successful, you know?
Right. I've seen a movie that was filmed in just as bad quality of film, and that was Alien 2 on Earth, but that didn't help it any.
I'm pretty sure that it wasn't because they wanted to go with the gritty, dirty look. I think it's because they couldn't afford anything better. But, yeah, it's like you go from that, and you go to the second Texas Chainsaw movie, which is like, you can tell it's like, all right, this is now a slasher franchise. Because it's got the same feeling you get when you watch the sequels to Nightmare on Elm Street, to the Chucky movies, or at least the second and third one, to like the Friday the 13th movies. I think I already said that, but like, you know, like the 80s slasher genre. You know, you get it very much feels like one of those.
Yeah, one thing I think is kind of annoying is they do an intro in the beginning that kind of implies that this is still supposed to be in the realm of real. And
no.
Yeah, it's just so fucking out there that no, it's not.
Yeah, like most 80s horror movies of its time, it goes balls to the wall. They do everything they can, imagination and budget allowing. And so in this one, we're introduced to Leatherface's family actively going out, which is an interesting scene because you see them like in a big-ass pickup with like no lights. And all of a sudden the lights just come on and it's like Leatherface wearing a grandpa suit. Is that supposed to be a suit made of a corpse, or is that supposed to be his actual grandpa, like strapped to him?
I have no idea. That scene has never made sense to me. Um,
Essentially, is like because I'm gonna have to put this up quick and
y-
dirty, so I'm not gonna be able to pull up a picture of this for the actual video. So we're gonna try to describe it to you as best as we can.
you basically see a corpse sticking out of the truck doing the chainsaw dance, and before that there was these guys in a car just like shooting random objects, and they like shoot the head off of it. Leatherface comes up from behind it and then starts attacking the car.
And you realize what it is. It's like it looks like Leatherface is like he's wearing loose clothing, or he shoved himself into the back of like some corpse's clothing. So that actually like it looks like first it looks like a corpse wielding a chainsaw, but then like as you see it more closely, particularly when Leatherface's head pops up, that it's a corpse strapped to the front of himself.
Yeah,
So he's actually wielding the chainsaw, but the corpse is in front of him. So from the front view, like with them looking in the rearview mirrors, all they see is this crazy ass corpse flailing a chainsaw around. And so this giant pickup is like pulling up alongside of them and shoving them from behind. Meanwhile, Leatherface is like carving into their fucking car in this whacked out like fucking chase sequence that has nothing to do with the main plot.
yeah.
It was just a weird ass way to introduce the movie. Then we're introduced to the sheriff, or for lack of a better name, Dennis Hopper's character.
Yeah, that's actually like the uncle of Franklin.
Yeah, that was the thing. Is like the wheelchair bound kid Franklin, he was killed, and so his uncle was none too pleased about it, and heard that his nephew was killed via chainsaw, and so you see him at like a hardware store looking for chainsaws
Yeah,
because he wants to fight fire with fire. So he gets like the biggest chainsaw that he can find and like physically wield, along with like two hand chainsaws that he can dual wield. And you see them trying them out, him trying them out in the store, like trying to get a feel for
yeah. And then he has to test him out, and he's just like goes ape shit on this log up front.
them. I wish you could still do that. I wish like you could go to fucking Sears and say, I want to test out these chainsaws. And home and like there's like sure, our customer service is important to us. And home and like one of their workers just like fucking produces a full ass fucking log that you can just destroy with one of their display chainsaws.
Yeah.
I think their business would go up because I hear they're bordering on bankruptcy right now.
Now, as far as the car chase scene goes, the guys in the car, they were prank calling this one radio station, and she happens to get a recording of when the attack took place, and the cop, he finds out about that, and he wants her to start playing it. Basically, he's using her as bait to draw out Leatherface. And Leatherface then chopped off ended up kidnapping her.
Well, like the scene where they kidnap her is actually pretty interesting because like Chop Top shows up. He looks like this weird caricature of like Hunter S. Thompson, and like you see him, he keeps picking at his head with like a clothes hanger. He's like heating up with like a lighter.
Yeah.
And then when he finally takes off, you realize that like he's got this giant metal plate over his skull, and he's slowly peeling off and eating bits of his scalp. Which, well, if you're a cannibal, I guess like auto cannibalism is just like a hop, skip, and a jump away from that. Which, if you ever wanted to see auto cannibalism in a movie, well, there you go. Good example right there.
And then, like, when Leatherface has her cornered, there's this part where he's, like, revving the chainsaw, and, like, in an attempt to survive, she's, like, trying to flirt with him. And so, like, the chainsaw, it ends up becoming, like, a metaphor for his penis.
Like, like he looks like he wants to, like, saw her up, but at the same time, like, he doesn't want to because he's attracted to her, so he just starts destroying everything in the room with the chainsaw.
Yeah.
I think the metaphor for his penis is like exactly where they were going for when they did that. I don't know if you ever saw it or played it, Dead Rising 2. There's a bit, because in Dead Rising 2 it takes place in like this Las Vegas mall. And there's this bit where like one of the psychos you encounter in the game is this guy in this S&M suit that's like a pig suit, and he's got this giant leather face looking chainsaw with like hearts cut into it, and like he's trying to get married to this chick because apparently he was raised by fundamentalists and he can't lose his virginity until like he gets married. So he's just like kidnapping this woman and forcing her to get married so that he can rape her. And he's got like this priest who's like he's forcing to like do the marriage. And you see him like revving up the chainsaw and holding it to his crotch like, oh, I can't wait, Father. Marry us now so we can get started. And like that one's a little bit too overt. It really makes a Texas Chainsaw a lot more subtle.
Yeah. Which it's not. But yeah, they apparently like there's a war historical museum where the Leatherface and his family are hiding out. They've got these underground tunnels that they're living in.
I thought it was a theme park. It's been too long since I've seen that movie.
They don't really spend a whole lot of time like on the theme park itself. They spend more time on the tunnels, so I'm not positive. But yeah, Dennis Hopper, he ends up going down there and like there's blood leaking out of the walls because it's just like full of human body parts, and he just starts like chainsawing everything down, and
yeah, and then he gets into like a chainsaw duel with Leatherface, and
yeah, and Chop Top, he ends up chasing the girl like up this huge tower where the grandmother's corpse is sitting, and there's a chainsaw up there that she ends up using to attack him, knock him off the tower, and then she does the chainsaw dance.
and then that's where the movie ends on that one, yeah?
Yeah.
All in all, not very good. Not in my opinion. What do you think?
I think it's a fun ride. It's not a good story by any means, but it's just fucking crazy, and if you like psychotic horror, then
if you're looking,
it's definitely worth a watch.
It's also like it's very much of its time. It's very much in that '80s vibe. So if you like '80s horror, it's like you like horror that's not meant to be taken seriously. That like you kind of watch as a popcorn flick, and not to genuinely scare you. Then that kind of would make more sense to me. Because I didn't find it scary. I just found it like kind of silly and stupid.
Yeah.
Then there was the third movie.
Yeah, this is the one you remember the speak and spell part very thoroughly.
Well, because like that's the part that stuck out with me. I don't remember a whole lot about this movie. It was very forgetful. I just remember the Saw's family, which was etched on the side of the Saw.
Yeah. I don't remember a whole lot of the plot of the third
See
one.
how forgetful it was?
Well, I don't own it right now.
Well,
but it's titled Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I mean, 3. And it's
a movie?
It's a movie. Yeah, I know it takes place in a swamp.
Yeah,
I know there's like a black guy that got injured, and like one of the characters is telling the mom, who's the cook, it's like, hey mom, we got some dark meat for you. And at one point, one of the characters is asked why they're doing this, and he says, we were hungry, and like before he gets killed, he said, why didn't you just order pizza?
This is cheaper? I don't know. They want more leftovers.
Yeah, in the remakes, it makes more sense in the context of why they resort to cannibalism as opposed to the classic movies. They don't really explain it. They just...
Well, in the classic movies, they're just fucking off-the-wall crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, granted, they're like, kind of like Looney Tunes crazy in the second, third, and fourth movie, but in the first one, they're just deeply fucking disturbed individuals.
Yeah.
Like, because like nothing about them seems like good, sane Christian people. It's like, it's like, why do you eat people? It's like, man, you're lucky that they're not running around chasing you while completely butt-ass naked. That is not a movie I'd want to see. I don't want to see a movie where Leatherface is chasing people around and nothing but the mask and nothing else.
What about the butcher's apron and the mask? Could he get away with that?
I still wouldn't want to see it, but you probably could get away with it past the censors. If anything, I think if he was going without the butcher's apron, like it would make the victims run faster. Definitely motivation to get you the fuck out of there.
There's all kinds of horrible ways to die, but this is not one I want to choose.
I don't want to die like that. So, like, yeah, the third movie is where you get the speak and spell thing. So, like, yeah, you see Leatherface sits down. And one thing I forgot to mention from the first one is that the first movie is the only one where I remember Leatherface actually speaking anything. And in the first movie, he doesn't really say much things. He just says a few things. Like when his father starts hitting him because he, I forget what he said, like he was mad at him for doing something. And then he says, like, I didn't, it's like you hear him as he's getting hit, like, I didn't do anything. I didn't touch anything. Like he's trying to like say like he didn't do it, but his father still hits him because like, you know, he sawed the door down to get at the victim when he was chasing him around the house.
Yeah.
But like after that, he doesn't ever like say anything.
He just makes noises in
Yeah.
the later movies.
He just screams and grunts and screams some more and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you see him sit down in front of this giant, like, jerry-rigged speak and spell thing. And you see him, like, he's going through, like, using it to learn how to spell. Then it comes up, it shows a picture of a clown. And if you go back to one of the previous videos that I edited, I actually managed to find the picture of that scene. And he keeps putting in food, the thing keeps, like, correcting him. It's like, no, it's a clown. It's like, no, it's food. It's a person, people equal food. It's food. But yeah, it's kind of interesting, but like disturbing in a way, you know? The idea that he can't really tell the difference.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of fucked up when you think about it, but that movie was kind of out of the four original ones, I think that one was the weakest.
Well, the fourth one, which was called Texas Chainsaw Next Generation, that one was just weird to me.
It's like they were trying to do a remake of the original because it hits all the main beats.
Yeah.
You get the characters, like the chick gets chased around the house by Leatherface. Like, you know, one of them gets put on the meat hook. And then they have the dinner scene. And then, like, the chase scene.
Yeah. Also, with the name Next Generation, it almost implies that they're trying to start it over. Now, towards the end of that...
It's like a soft reboot.
Towards the end, there's this weird guy in a business suit. And he starts, like, chastising everybody at the dinner table except the girl. Because, like, apparently they're supposed to teach someone the meaning of horror. And he opens his shirt and he's got all these weird, like, scars that...
and piercings and stuff. It looks like he was trying to do to his his chest and stomach what Pinhead did to his face.
Yeah.
He's got like this grid pattern like carved into his torso, if I remember correctly, and some piercings. It looks like he's trying to be like, you know, like during the week he's a Joe businessman, but like at nights people don't know that he's a bargain basement Cenobite.
And he licks her face a few times before leaving. And when the girl ends up escaping, he ends up picking her up in the limo. And for some reason, she's just okay with this. And
When he poured in the storm.
And he says that, you know, this experiment's been a complete failure.
Maybe it was a precursor to Cabin in the Woods.
Maybe.
Because if I remember correctly, like instead of head cheese and pa and grandpa, you get a female character, and you get this one male character who's got like
He's got some sort of...
It's not a prosthetic leg. It looks like he's got a leg brace, but I'm guessing he might have had polio or something because his leg doesn't seem to be able to move properly under its own power.
He uses remote controls to get it to go, and that's actually one of the ways that character escapes from this, she grabs a remote control and kind of takes.
Yeah, he's got like this belt with all these different remote controls. When one doesn't work, he just switches to the next one. It's like, program one fucking remote and stick with it. You don't need like this fucking holster of 10 remotes. And it's like, which one is it today? Not that one. That one's not working. Let me try this other one. That one ain't working either. It's like, or you know what? Just a simple like push button. One button. Push it down to make your leg go up. Let it go to make your leg go down. That fucking simple. It's like having a fucking TV remote with like 24 buttons just seems like bullshit to make your leg work. Like, he seems to be the main head of the family. He's the one calling the shots until like weird business guy shows up to like really make the movie go into a curveball. Really, the only thing that makes you think of it as a Leatherface movie is Leatherface himself, who kind of doesn't fit.
Yeah, he really doesn't seem like he's supposed to be part of that family.
It's like he just seems like he's stuck in the first movie and can't tell the difference. It's like you see, there's two women. The one that survives, like she gets away, but this other one, man, she gets she gets injured, and like the other woman, like the woman that's with the family, finds her and like picks up a tree branch and tries to bludgeon her to death.
Starts beating her
with like the daintiest, wussiest way ever. It's like it's not even. It's just it's causing her pain and annoying her, but not causing any physical injury. So she's like, oh, how do I do this? Smack. Hey, quit it. Smack. Stop it. That's annoying. Nah, I can't do this. And so she just takes her back to the farm where they stick her on a meat hook. Or maybe she was on the meat hook before and she pulled herself off and she collapsed on the road and that's when they caught her.
I'd have to see it again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's like I forget exactly what it been. So she's like...
one of the things I remember, though, is the lady... she's specifically going to pick up pizza before she gets home, which reminded me of Leatherface, why don't you just order a pizza?
Well, it's like their victims got away, so they got to eat something. But, like, and, like, do they actually, like, eat people in that one? It's like they have the meat hook thing, but, like...
I don't remember them eating anybody in that one.
Maybe Leatherface was the only one
I don't even remember a chainsaw killing that one. I could be wrong.
Like really after the first one... like chainsaw killings, like the chainsaw became a prop and not so much a weapon. Because like you said, like you only ever see one guy get killed with a chainsaw in the first movie.
Yeah.
It's just like the idea of getting killed by a chainsaw is a very unpleasant idea. I mean, like, have you seen that scene from Scarface? Like, I think they started as groin and worked their way up, which is like, man, that's a shitty way to get killed by a chainsaw. But so like yeah, it's like then you get the injured chick. She's like pretty much unconscious for most of the dinner party. So just like for giggles, like fakey leg gets a lighter, and then he goes ahead and pours the lighter fluid on her back, and then sets her back on fire, which causes her to finally wake up and fall over. And then you get this bit where like he puts his boot on her head and like using the remote like slowly crushes her head to death off screen, and like meanwhile the other woman's like screaming for him to stop, and he's just laughing as you hear like the really cheapy shitty gears in like his leg like grind against each other, and then you finally hear the crunch of her head collapse, which I'm thinking is like, yeah, that's a pretty bad way to die and gruesome, but like just for that movie it seemed way too out of place. And then, like, when you, like, once again, like, this one's hitting all the beats of the first movie. It's like, Leatherface goes chasing after the main chick when she runs away, and Fakey Leg is running along, too, chasing her, just like Head Cheese from the first movie. And whereas Head Cheese got run over by the semi-truck, this guy gets fucking his face destroyed when a prop plane that's doing like crop dusting, I guess, for no reason, swoops down and catches this guy just as he turns around to see what that noise is, and just gets him in the face.
Yeah.
Which of course causes Leatherface to get upset, which has him do the fucking chainsaw dance. Just like that was actually the first Leatherface movie I ever saw, the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie I ever saw. And at the time, it was like, I hadn't seen anything like it, and I thought it was pretty cool. But man, you compare it to the first one, and it is just a cheap bullshit like intimidation of the first one. Just bad. I didn't. It's like, man, it pales in comparison. But anyway, from there we end up with what, the remake?
Well, there's 4 movies that came after. The first one was remake of the Texas Chainsaw. Then there was Texas Chainsaw: The Beginning, Texas Chainsaw 3D, and Leatherface. Now, the Texas Chainsaw is supposed to be a remake of the first. Beginning is supposed to be a prequel to the remake. 3D is supposed to be a sequel to the original. And Leatherface is supposed to be a prequel to the original.
So which one comes first? Texas Chainsaw: The Beginning or Leatherface?
Depends on which story arc you're going. If you're going based on the original film, then Leatherface would be first.
And then Texas Chainsaw, The Beginnings.
Well, The Beginning actually doesn't work into the original storyline. That one goes off the remake of the Texas.
So technically, the remake is just Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning.
Yeah.
And Leatherface 3D and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D and Leatherface are sequels and prequels to the original.
Right.
Okay. That's a little bit less confusing. I saw the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. While it had Arlie Ermy in it, it really couldn't save it for me. I don't know what it was. It didn't have the charm. It was trying too hard to get like this hillbilly style feel for the characters in the movie, and not enough to get what I think made the original special, which is the grittiness of it, the low budget, the less is more.
Yeah. Also, like, they just spend an awful lot of time letting the food talk.
I think it comes from, in a lot of movies nowadays, they want you to be like emotionally involved with the characters. Whether it's like you become attached to the character and you don't want to see them die, or when they die, you become like, like horrified because oh, my favorite character died. Oh, this sucks. Or they go the other way. They make the character like intentionally like obnoxious and annoying, to where like you cannot wait to see them get fucking just chewed up and spit out. And then of course they end up being like the last ones that get killed.
Yeah.
I don't think you should ever be cheering on the killer in a horror movie. I think if you're doing that, then they fucked up somewhere along the line. You may still like the movie, but I think at that point it's not a horror movie anymore.
Yeah.
You're essentially watching an action movie with a lot of gore. And really fucked up morals.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about the new one. As far as, like, special effects go.
It had better special effects, but it didn't need them because, like we mentioned in the first one was great because, like, it didn't show you a lot of the gore because it didn't need to.
Yeah, the sound effects of the first one just really make it so fucking jarring.
The first one barely had any special effects whatsoever, and yet it's the most realistic and gut-wrenching out of all of them.
Yeah.
But then again, the first one came out, I mean not the first one, but the remake came out at about the time when...
It was like right after Freddy vs. Jason.
Well, not just that, it was right about the torture porn movie generation.
Yeah.
Which, like, Hostel, Saw, a lot of these movies where they thought that the only thing that qualified a movie for being scary was gore. And that's not what makes a scary movie scary.
Yeah.
It's like gore in a scary movie should be no less important than anything else. And in fact, it should be secondary to the writing and the characters and the plot and everything else. It's like gore shouldn't be your number one focus in a movie. And you can kind of tell that's where they went with like the remake, because what's the first thing that happens? They pick up this crazy woman. I think she was either pregnant or she had a kid.
She had a kid.
Yeah, she had a kid, and like she's freaking out, and she's like afraid that they're going to go back. So she just puts a gun in her mouth and blows her fucking brains out. And they do this interesting shot, I will say, of like her head with this giant hole. You can still see the smoke from like the gunpowder as her head finally falls open. You see like the blood spattered like bullet hole in the back window of their vehicle, while everyone inside the vehicle is freaking out. But it's like I remember that, but I remember it being like, oh, that was pretty intense. But like, what's the movie got to offer besides this? Answer: not fucking much.
Yeah.
It's like, not even R. Lee Ermey could save it, man, and that's disappointing because I love R. Lee Ermey as an actor. He does great shit. Great shit. And then there was the beginning, which after the remake, I didn't care at all what the fucking story had. Do you remember anything about the beginning?
Yeah. Basically, it shows Leatherface before he actually got a human face to wear as a mask. He's got like a bit of leather that he wraps around the bottom part of his face, which is where his skin disease supposedly is rotting his face off. And the butcher's plant that he works for is closing down. And the boss is telling him, hey, you need to get out of here. The place is closed down. And he ends up insulting Leatherface. So Leatherface turns around and kills him. Sheriff tells his father, hey, your son killed someone. I need you to help me bring him in. Well, his father is R. Lee Ermey. And so when the sheriff is going to arrest Leatherface, he sneaks up behind him with a shotgun, kills him, takes the suit to assume the role of the sheriff, and basically he cooks the sheriff, lets his family know we're not going hungry again.
Well, in terms of if you're going to be a serial killer, that is a way to get rid of the bodies.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there are real serial killers that got rid of bodies that way. I mean, like, and if you use everything, like, there's no evidence left.
Yeah.
Except, like, maybe the bones, and if you're using them to make knickknacks, or, like, fucking furniture, like in the first movie, they'd have to break down the furniture, and it's probably not all made from one person either.
Yeah, well, also when you're a small town like that, and you've taken over the role as the sheriff, it's like, who the hell's going to investigate you?
Then again, in Texas, it's like, being the sheriff is no big shake. So if you're in a small town, and you're the sheriff, you can't exactly rule with an iron fist if everyone also has a gun. Because the second you try to, sheriff over them, they're just going to shoot your ass dead. Because guess what? You are very vulnerable to bullets just like everyone else.
Yeah.
It's like people forget that in, like, Texas towns. It's like, God, how big is the town supposed to be that they're in? Like 4 people?
I'm honestly not too sure.
So anyway, the last 2 movies I've not seen, so you're going to have to fill in for me. So let's go with Leatherface, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D.
Alright, well that one, like I said, it's a sequel to the original. And this girl, well it opens up, basically the sheriff is confronting the Sawyer family because of Leatherface. He says he's got a girl that says you butchered her whole family. And the father's like, well, he was just defending the family. They weren't supposed to be here. But eventually the sheriff, manages to convince them that they need to turn Leatherface over, and they're fixing to comply. And then a whole bunch of hillbillies from town show up and just, start shooting up the place and throwing Molotovs out there while the sheriff's trying to get the situation under control.
Well, because, like I said, is I think that was something that was established in the remake. Is everyone thinks that us people here in Texas, we all subside on tumbleweeds and in sheer grit. It's no, we actually have paved roads and electricity in Texas, believe it or not.
Yeah. Horses are really not that common.
No, they're not. It's you ride horses not because you need to get somewhere, but because, oh, how quaint.
I have the luxury of taking a horse out.
It'd be like if you saw someone in a horse-drawn carriage going through Central Park in New York. That doesn't mean that every motherfucker in New York goes around in a horse-drawn carriage. It's you see one, mounted cop, at a parade in New York. Doesn't mean that all New York police officers are required to be on horseback.
Yeah. And then it cuts to modern times. This girl finds out she has an inheritance from a grandmother she didn't know about. and she has to go there in person to collect it. So her and her friends decide to take the trip with her, and she's met by this man who hands her a bunch of keys, and he hands her a letter, and he says, "Make sure you read the letter." She doesn't read the letter.
Of course not. It's a fucking horror movie. Why the fuck would she?
So her and her friends, they go in this house. Leatherface ends up, killing a couple of them, and she ends up escaping. And it turns out, like, the sheriff of the mayor of this town was part of the group that led
The lynching.
yeah. And she ends up running into the lawyer that gave her the letter in the first place. And she's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" And he says, "Didn't you read the letter?"
It's like, I don't know how to read.
He basically explains, Leatherface is your cousin. And so the mayor, he ends up using the police force to catch the girl to try to lure Leatherface. And that's when she reveals to him that she's his cousin. And so he helps her get out of her binds. Meanwhile, the police show up. They start attacking Leatherface. And as she's fixing to escape, she has like a second thought, grabs the chainsaw, chucks it to Leatherface, says, "Do what you do, cuz."
Because why the fuck not?
And then it goes back to their house. And it starts like having the grandma, like a voiceover of the grandmother reading the letter, basically saying, "Hey, this is your home, everything in it's yours. Your cousin's in the cellar, he will protect you." And
Throw him some chicken nuggets every now and then, maybe a bucket of water.
yeah. And one of the things that I thought was pretty cool about this movie is, like, they actually have Leatherface fairly old because time has passed. And he's walking with a limp because of his injury to his leg from the first movie. And then they end it with her calling her actual, not her actual, but like her adopted mother and father, because it turns out they were part of the lynching mob. She basically invites him over to the house, and Leatherface answers the door.
So yeah, it's like I would have to imagine in Texas, if word got around that your family are a bunch of murdering cannibals that have completely lost their fucking mind, like honor the patriarch of their family who's like 130 years old, and it's like oh, he just is like, don't worry, he puts people down quick. It's like, yeah, that doesn't really help people deal with their loved ones being killed. Like, cannibalism doesn't exactly fly too well down here. I can't say the same about other states, but at least, in South Texas where we are, not to say that we condone, like, a lynch mob, but, yeah, people wouldn't, respond to news like that very well.
Yeah, it's not like Canada where, it's like you get a slap on the wrist and a heavy fine.
A heavy fine is like, well, not too heavy, they don't want to be rude.
Yeah.
They just give you that shame, that Canadian shame.
Will you still be able to pay your rent? All right. Got enough money for food? Oh, don't worry about that.
It's like, you seem a bit dejected. Here, have some Canadian bacon. But yeah, so like that all happens in the 3D or is that 3D and everything?
3D.
What's the bit in Leatherface?
Leatherface is fucking disgusting.
I thought you said you liked it.
No.
Well, apparently I heard wrong.
No, it really doesn't fit into the movie that well. They say it's supposed to be a prequel to the original, but it doesn't work as a prequel to that one or the remake. The family's led by this lady, and like her kids end up killing one of the sheriff's children, and so he has them all committed to an insane asylum. They eventually break out and try to make their way back home. And like, one of the scenes along the way, they're trying to escape the police, and they see this dead cow that's like half liquid, half maggots, and so they hide under the cow while the
Of course, I couldn't think of a better place to hide. Like maybe a drainage ditch or in a bush.
but
Underneath a cow puddle. That sounds good.
and they get picked off one by one as they're trying to get back. There's this one scene where they find a trailer and the owner in there, he's dead. And so, like, this one psychotic girl that's part of this entourage, she decides to have sex with the corpse while her boyfriend also has sex with her. And they make it a point to show, like, her just tonguing the fuck out of its dead mouth. And he's got, like, a really waxy look to his body. It's like wax that's not quite melted, but it's at the room temperature, or it's soft and pliable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they used for the dummy, like actual wax.
But eventually, the Leatherface gets home, and his face got damaged real bad. I forget how. But the mother, she gets like some leather straps and like sews his face back together, and then has him go chase after the cop that put her kids away with a chainsaw. And
That's it.
yeah.
Well, that sounds pretty shitty.
Yeah, it's a shitty plot that's fucking disgusting.
It's like once again, gross out is like just making things gross and disgusting doesn't make them scary.
Yeah.
And like also if you got people who are like necrophiliacs, how are you supposed to root for that?
Yeah.
It's like these are the protagonists you're watching, like, you know, like they're getting picked off one by one, like you said. I'm not rooting for them to get home if this is like.
Yeah.
Why do people take?
And it has nothing to do with Leatherface. You know, just trying to say his siblings are fucked up. We already knew that.
I mean, you had like Head Cheese and Chop Top, who I'm assuming were like, if not his brothers, then cousins. Because, like, you know, I'm guessing there's like a lot of inbreeding that goes on.
I think they're brothers. I remember in Texas Chainsaw 3D, like, when they're doing the opening scene, the father saying you can bury your brother later because they have Head Cheese, like, dead on the table.
Like, how dead? Like, is he...
Oh, he's fucking dead.
Well, I mean, like, does he still look like a person, or does he look like he got run over by a fucking semi-truck?
It looks like he took a good hit by a semi-truck. Not under the wheel well kind of run over, but...
It's like, you know, not to say, it's like, once again, it doesn't have to be gory, but sometimes just implied. Like, you don't even have to show the body. You can just, like, hear them thump something meaty and heavy on a table and just see them react to it.
Yeah.
Like, you can hear the flies in the background. Just like, oof. Because, man, getting run over by a semi, that can't be good for you.
I'd rather get run over by the semi than have to do the cow puddle.
It brings a whole new meaning to a cow patty, doesn't it?
Yeah. And there's a documentary. I don't have it, nor have I watched it, but I eventually want to get it. It's, I believe it's called Family Portrait, which is supposed to be a retrospective on the Texas Chainsaw movies. I don't know how many it covers. But...
You know, come to think of it, it really sounds like the only, like, stellar one out of the bunch was the first one, and the rest of them were all just subpar.
I really like 3D. I highly recommend that one.
I may have to check that out sometime then.
Yeah. But, yeah, those two are probably the best, in my opinion.
It seems like all the rest were just cheap cash grabs. It's like they went too far away from what made the original one so good, which is like making a horror movie that is so fucking real that is not even a horror movie anymore. It's a fucking documentary.
Chip.
It's a documentary on shit that, and it's like, it's one of those things, like I remember saying this, what makes it so unnerving and like scary is not what you see, but the idea that this could be going on right now somewhere, Doesn't have to be Texas. It can be anywhere in the U.S. And you can see this happening. Like an isolated family that's just like completely fucking lost their mind, that are very close knit, and that, like, pick up stragglers, just people that wouldn't be missed, like transients, like, people going through the area. They just never show up at their final destination. Just like, it could be anyone, because people go missing all the time. And just like in some place out there like that, it's like if there's no bodies, there's no evidence. It's like, how are you going to say? It's like, you can't say it was them if, like, none of them ever get away, because, like, they kill them and then they eat them, and then whatever's left, like the bones and whatnot, they make shit out of it.
Yeah.
You can just say, oh, I made this, like, out of a deer that I caught, because you see there's like a taxidermy animals in, like, when you see the house in the first movie.
Yeah, there's like a lot of chicken bones and cow skulls and just all kinds of crazy.
And there's like also like I think there's like a deer's head, like a big owl or something like that. So it's like, they know taxidermy, which is probably like, how that helps them get rid of like the corpses, making stuff out of their bodies. But just the idea of that, like, you could see bones and be like, that kind of looks like people bones, but then you see like all the animal taxidermy and shit, like, oh, it's probably just deer or like warthogs or javelinas or all kinds of shit like that. You never know. It's like, shit, there's lots of small towns in Texas. That's the creepy thing. If you go driving around Texas, there's plenty of like speed bump towns, like you blink and you miss it. They're not so much a town as there is a gas station where like the owner lives behind the gas station, and it's like he's the population of the town. He's the gas station worker, also the gas station attendant, also like the dog catcher, the mayor, the city council, the sheriff.
Yeah, me and my friends actually went into a town like that once. We were going to the Frio River, and this convenience store, we're going around, and one of the things we noticed is like all the boxes of stuff are super fucking old. Like, he had Jell-O boxes that had been on the shelf so long they had yellowed. We were thinking, before, we realized that, like, it had yellowed. It was like, man, this looks like an old box. And then, oh, it expired 6 years ago.
So you see like the old, you see cans of new Coke in the fucking Coke machine.
Right.
Oh shit.
See cans of old Coke.
Don't even say classic, it's just Coke.
2, please. Well, if this drought in the sun had snorted.
Damn. Well, anyway, we're gonna have to cut it for now. But I wanted to get something Halloween that we could talk about, and so I'm going to be putting this up tomorrow. Hopefully, you guys will enjoy it. And don't worry, there's going to be an update Saturday as well. You're going to get 2 this week. And hopefully,
you greedy bastards.
Well, we need to get stuff out there. It's like, I pretty much know every single person who's subscribed. We don't have any subscribers that have found our shit on their own. Hopefully that'll change soon. And if you manage to stumble across this video and you haven't subscribed, fucking subscribe, please. we need help, please. All of it. We need all the help. But if you have suggestions for any horror movies you'd like us to watch and like talk about, definitely. We haven't been getting any comments. We haven't been getting any suggestions, so we don't know what the fuck to talk about anymore. We're sitting around for damn near an hour trying to think of what the fuck to talk about. It's like, I can talk about anything, but it helps if we know what you guys want to hear. So definitely like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you want to hear us talk about.
Even if you don't subscribe, comment. Fucking comment.
We need to know what you guys want. What the hell do you want from us?
I actually have a hard time getting started on these things. Once I get started, I can talk for a while. But
oh yeah.
But I have trouble picking up. So if you have suggestions, please, we're open to them. We'll talk about macaroni and cheese for an hour and a half if that's what you want.
Consistency, texture, temperature, branding, color
of exit,
mouthfeel.
Oh, I hate that word.
Anyway, until next time, if you are and happen to be, stay fat and stay angry.